You can't escape your mind, but you can wake up from it. Buddhist wisdom. There's a paradox that each of us lives within, whether we know it or not. It's this: we're trying to escape from something we can never leave behind. Pause for a moment and look at your own experience. When you feel pain, you want to escape it. When your mind is chaotic, you want to silence it. When painful memories arise, you want to forget them. And in all these efforts, what are you using? Your mind itself. This is what the Buddha saw 2,600 years ago. We're using the mind to run away from the mind. Like an eye that cannot see itself. Like a flame that cannot burn itself. But the Buddha didn't stop there. He pointed to a path, not a path of escape, but a path of awakening. And this is the difference between hell and heaven, between suffering and liberation. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says something that sounds simple, but carries within it the key to understanding all of human suffering. All experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. This isn't praise for the mind, it's a warning. Because if the mind shapes all our experience, then it's also shaping our suffering. Right now, as you're listening to these words, what is your mind doing? It's not just passively receiving information, it's constantly categorizing. This is good, that is bad. I like this, I hate that. This person is trustworthy, that one is dangerous. Modern psychology calls this categorical perception. But the Buddha saw this process with extraordinary clarity more than 2 millennia before neuroscience existed. He described it through terms like sanya, perception, and papanka, mental proliferation. How the mind doesn't just perceive, it multiplies, elaborates, spins stories upon stories. Think about the last time someone said something that upset you. Maybe it was just a few words, but what happened in your mind? Those words became a story. They said this, which means they think that about me, which means I'm not valued. A simple input became a complex narrative. This is how the mind creates a parallel world. Not the world as it is, but the world as the mind interprets it to be. But the Buddha didn't just identify this problem. He mapped out exactly how it works through Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, the 12 links of causation. It starts with avijja, ignorance, not seeing clearly. From this fundamental not seeing, everything follows. Sankhara, mental formations. Vijnana, consciousness. Name and form, nama rupa. 6 sense bases, salayatana. Contact, phassa. Feeling, vedana. Craving, tanha. Clinging, upadana. Becoming, bhava. Birth, jati. And aging and death, jara marana. Let me show you how this operates right now. You see an image on social media. That's contact. Immediately, there's a feeling. You see someone living a life that looks better than yours. Craving arises. Then clinging. Comparing. Feeling lack. And from that, the whole story of me and my unsatisfactory life gets reinforced. This chain runs thousands of times a day, creating and recreating the sense of a separate self. In Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha compares the untrained mind to a monkey leaping in the forest from branch to branch, grasping one branch, letting go, grasping another. In the same way, what is called mind, thought, consciousness arises as one thing and ceases as another, day and night. Try this. Stop and try not to think about anything for just 1 minute. Can you do it? Most of us will discover the mind has a life of its own, jumping from thought to thought without permission. Modern neuroscience has observed this through what they call the default mode network. But here's the crucial insight. In practice, we can distinguish between the jumping thoughts and the space of awareness in which they arise. This is a skillful tool for not getting swept away. Yet ultimately, even this awareness is conditioned and impermanent, not a permanent self. We use the mind's capacity for awareness to observe the mind's activities, knowing that even this awareness is not self. It's like using a thorn to remove another thorn, then throwing both away. The mind creates the problem, then tries to solve it using the same mechanisms that created it. But before we can find the way out, we need to understand why our usual strategies don't work. Most people come to Buddhism hoping to control their minds, master their emotions, eliminate their suffering. If only I could control my thoughts, they think, then I would be happy. It sounds reasonable. But this very approach is built on a fundamental misunderstanding. Why can't you simply control your way out? The reason is both simple and profound. The very intention to control is also a mental activity. When you say, "I want to control my mind," who is the I doing the controlling, and what is the mind being controlled? They're both movements of the same process. Let me give you a real example. You're lying in bed, unable to sleep. Your mind is racing. So you think, "I need to relax. I must fall asleep." But the more you try to sleep, the more awake you become. The effort creates tension, and that tension keeps you awake. You're trapped. You can't sleep, which makes you anxious, which makes you try harder, which makes you more tense. This is the trap of control. Every attempt to suppress or fix creates more of what you're trying to eliminate. Psychologist Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." But he was talking about something the Buddha had taught centuries earlier: the futility of fighting with reality. Try this. For the next 10 seconds, don't think about a white bear. What happened? A white bear probably appeared immediately. This is the white bear effect. The more you try not to think about something, the more you think about it. Your brain has to check, am I thinking about a white bear? And in checking, it generates the image. So if control doesn't work, what does? The Buddha taught something completely different: clear seeing. When you simply observe a thought without judgment, without trying to push it away, it loses its power over you. This is the foundation of right mindfulness. Not warfare with the mind, but clear, non-reactive observation. There's another dimension to this trap: how we relate to our past. In Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha explains that the 6 sense bases are old karma, results of past actions to be experienced. But present actions of body, speech, and mind are new karma. The Noble Eightfold Path is the way to stop creating new karma that leads to suffering. What does this mean practically? You can't change the seeds already sown. Your mind carries deep patterns: anusaya, underlying tendencies; sankhara, mental formations; and asava, mental taints. These are habits shaped by countless past experiences. Think of your past as stones thrown into a pond. Those ripples are still spreading. You can't make them disappear, but you can stop throwing new stones. How? By being aware of each action, word, and thought before they solidify into new patterns. This isn't about erasing the past. This is about not allowing the past to mechanically create an identical future. Every strategy we normally use, control, resistance, suppression, only creates more suffering. This is why the Buddha's teaching is so radical. He's pointing to something completely different, a shift from trying to escape to awakening within. Everything we've explored leads to this moment, where something shifts through a fundamental change in understanding. In Pali, the word Buddha means the awakened one, not the one who escaped, not the one who controlled, the awakened one. Because awakening isn't about going somewhere else. It's about waking up from the dream that the mind has been creating. Think about waking from a dream. In the dream, everything feels absolutely real and compelling. But then you wake up, and in that instant you realize, none of it was what I thought it was. You didn't escape from the dream. You simply woke up, and in waking, the dream revealed itself. In Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha describes his enlightenment. Before my enlightenment, while I was still a bodhisattva, I thought, let me remain still and observe the source of birth, aging, and death. Notice that word, observe, not fight, not control, but seeing with clarity. When you try to escape, you create a war. But when you awaken, when you simply see clearly, you're no longer in the battlefield. This brings us to mindfulness. Mindfulness, sati in Pali, is a liberating tool, not just a relaxation technique. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha teaches 16 steps of breath meditation. But the ultimate purpose isn't to breathe better or feel calmer. The purpose is to see directly the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self nature of all phenomena. When you sit in meditation and observe your breath, you begin to notice. Thoughts appear from nowhere. Emotions arise without permission. Physical sensations change constantly. Everything that arises passes away. Nothing stays. This isn't philosophy. This is direct seeing. And in that direct seeing, something shifts. You no longer completely identify with thoughts and emotions. You see them as passing phenomena, like clouds drifting across the sky. We sometimes speak of this as if you are the sky and thoughts are weather. But remember, even this sky of awareness is itself a conditioned process, not a fixed self. It's a skillful distinction, but ultimately even the awareness is part of the flowing dance of conditions. Meditation master Ajahn Chah said, "Meditation is not about creating special states. It's about seeing clearly what has always been there." Mindfulness is like a clear mirror. It doesn't change what it reflects, but that clear reflection itself sets you free. This direct seeing reveals what the Buddha called the three universal characteristics: tilakkhana, anicca, impermanence. Everything that arises passes away. Notice your breath right now. Each in-breath is different from the last. Reality is a river, and you can never step in the same water twice. But we live as if things are permanent, and when change inevitably happens, we suffer. Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. When you cling to anything impermanent, you suffer. Imagine holding a beautiful bird. If you hold it gently, you can appreciate its beauty. But if you grasp it tightly to keep it from flying away, you'll crush it. This is dukkha, the suffering that comes from trying to hold on to what cannot be held. Anatta, not self. There's no unchanging, permanent essence at your core. Look at your direct experience. Can you find the I? Is it in your body? But your body is constantly changing. In your thoughts? But thoughts come and go. The sense of I appears and disappears, strengthens and weakens, depending on conditions. When you're deeply absorbed, where does the I go? This isn't a philosophical position. It's an invitation to investigate directly. And when you look closely, you begin to see that this sense of self is more like a process than a thing, constructed moment by moment from changing conditions. Sensations, thoughts, memories, none of which stay the same. This direct seeing is the heart of liberation. Once you see that all phenomena are impermanent, you stop clinging quite so tightly. Once you see that clinging creates suffering, you hold everything more lightly. Once you see through the illusion of a fixed self, the burden of constantly defending it begins to dissolve. This is the great shift. From trying to escape to awakening to what you actually are. Not a fixed thing, but a flowing process. And in that seeing, something releases through clear understanding. Understanding is one thing, transformation is another. This is why the Buddha offered the Noble Eightfold Path, 𝐴𝐻𝐴𝐻𝐸𝐴. These 8 factors aren't sequential steps. They're 8 aspects of a unified way of living that develop together, each supporting the others. Right view, samadhi. Seeing reality as it is. Understanding suffering, its cause, its cessation, and the path directly in your own experience. Right intention, sammasankappa. When you see clearly, your intentions naturally shift toward renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. Right speech, sammavaka. Words that are truthful, harmonious, gentle, and meaningful flow from clear understanding. Right action, sammakamanta. Conduct that doesn't harm living beings, doesn't take what's not given, and acts responsibly. Right livelihood, samma-ajiva. Earning your living without creating suffering. Right effort, samma-vayama. Wise, balanced energy, not forceful, but steady like a gardener. Right mindfulness, samma-sati. Clear, present moment awareness throughout the day. Right concentration, samma-samadhi. Settling and unifying the mind through meditative absorption, giving it stability to see deeply. When you practice mindfulness, your view becomes clearer. When your view clears, your intentions align. When your intentions align, your speech and actions follow. Each factor waters all the others. This is a complete map for transforming your entire way of being. This brings us to vipassana, insight meditation. Samatha means tranquility, developing concentration until the mind becomes settled. Vipassana means insight, using that stability to investigate reality directly, seeing the 3 characteristics in all phenomena. While Samatha provides strength and clarity, Vipassana directly cuts through ignorance. When you practice Vipassana, you're simply seeing what has always been true. Everything changes. Nothing can be held onto. There's no permanent essence anywhere. Think of clutching a poisonous snake in darkness, believing it's a rope. As long as you think it's a rope, you hold on tightly. But the moment light reveals it's a snake, the letting go happens instantly. That's how Vipassana works. Clear seeing leads naturally to release. This connects everything. The 12 links operate because of ignorance, not seeing the 3 characteristics. Control and resistance fail because they ignore impermanence and not self. Old karma ripens, but new karma isn't created when you respond with clear seeing, rather than craving and aversion. In Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha teaches, an untrained person struck by a painful feeling is like someone struck by two arrows. The first arrow is physical pain, unavoidable. But then they shoot themselves with a second arrow, the mental suffering of worry, fear, anger, despair. A trained person still feels the first arrow. The body ages, gets sick. That's the nature of physical existence. But they don't create the second arrow. They simply observe with mindfulness, see its impermanent nature, and don't add mental suffering on top. This is what living the path looks like. Not eliminating pain, but stopping the multiplication of suffering through reactivity. In his final teaching, Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha said, "Be islands unto yourselves, be refuges unto yourselves. Let the Dhamma be your island, let the Dhamma be your refuge." No one can awaken for you, but you have everything you need. The mind you've been trying to escape is the very instrument of liberation. The suffering is the motivation, and the capacity for clear seeing is already present. The path isn't somewhere in the future. It's here, in this breath, in this moment of awareness. Each time you choose to see clearly rather than react automatically, you're walking it. Each time you observe without clinging, you're tasting freedom. This is the invitation. Not to escape your mind, but to wake up within it.